What is up, guys? I hope you're all having a good day, and welcome back to another Awaken video. So before we kick things off with our first champion guide for the channel, I wanted to give a big thank you to each and every one of you. We finally reached over 100 subscribers, and our viewership has been exponentially larger than I've ever seen before, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much to each and every one of you that has been watching, liking, and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Alright, so now to the actual video. So, I've been very slow at trying to get into doing champion guides. I really wanted to be at a point in the game where I was able to get decent gear and get characters set up the way I want them before I start trying to make claims about what they can and can't do, and, in general, just telling people how to build. So, I've been holding off on doing it for a while now, and I'm finally reaching the point where I'm feeling a bit more comfortable with doing that. I'm having a little better luck with gear. I'm seeing some good stats out of certain characters. So we're kind of getting into the place where I can do that. And so for the first one, we're going to come in here and we're going to talk about Blackhorn. He's a fairly simple one to build, but a lot of people have him from the early days because of the first battle pass. A lot of you may have pulled him by now, but he's a very solid one, and I have him built pretty well the way I want him to be. And so since I don't have much more work to do on him besides throwing gear charms into all of his gear, I feel like he would be a pretty good prospect for my first quick guide video. So the way I'm going to try and do these quick guides is similar to the fashion I tried to do raid champion guides, in case you've been around for that long. So instead of trying to show you long runs in all the dungeons and have an incredibly long video, we're mostly going to look over the kit, talk about where they're useful, how I like to build them, and where I use them and what for, without wasting your time showing you a long dungeon run or a long armored incursion run, showing exactly what I talked about. So they're going to be a quick format, going over the basics of building and using a champion. Now, I'm not against trying to do longer form ones with the, showing the entire dungeon runs and talking about it and so forth. So if you do have a preference either way, whether you like the quick format like I'm going to be doing here, or whether you want to see a full-length video with, showing entire runs of content, let me know. I'm more than happy to try and do either way. I've just decided to start with trying to do it in a quick format. So let's get into it with our boy Blackhorn. So he is pretty much my #1 healer right now, and I think he is one of the better healers in the game. So we'll start here on the main stat screen. So as you can see, he has a pretty low rating in attack, low rating in speed, low rating in crit rate, but an S in health and an A in defense. He's a really tanky fella, and we'll start going through his kit here. So his trait here, character's abilities heal them for 8% of max HP, and if you have him ascended, character's abilities heal him for 15% of max HP. So it's a pretty good skill, because no matter what he does, he heals for 8% of his max HP every single turn, or 15 once you have him ascended. So it's pretty good at keeping him alive. His A1 deals 80% damage to one enemy and applies attack down for 2 turns. I really like that it's not a chance to apply, it's just, it applies. If you have the focus to land it on a character, it just goes. You don't have to roll the dice on hoping it does what it needs to. It just does it, and I really like that. And having the attack down on his A1 makes it very easy to keep this debuff on almost everything in the game, which is really nice because it does minimize a lot of the damage dealt to your team, and it really plays into a very strong support kit he has. His A2, which I actually really like this skill. They changed it around a bit early on in the game, but I actually like the way it works now better than I did before. So what it does is summons a totem for 3 turns that heals all team members by 15%, and removes 1 negative effect at the end of each round, removed upon taking 3 instances of area damage. So just in case that sounds a little bit weird, what he does is he'll spawn this little totem guy next to him on the board in a battle, and it has 3, we'll think of it as 3 HP, and 1 HP is taken away each time your team is hit with an AoE attack. So it can't be targeted, it only goes away when things hit with an AoE. And one other small note to this is, and now it is possible this gets changed because I don't know if it's supposed to work this way, but any kind of AoE heals, such as his own ult and shields, do go on the totem, so you can keep the totem around longer than 3 instances of damage. How it calculates this health and shields on it, I don't know, but I know that when I use an ult or use a shield from other characters, it does go on the totem as well and keeps it around longer. So you can build around that if you'd like, you can wait and see if they take it away. I don't know, but I know it can get overshielded. And the big thing they changed was the debuff removal used to be on his ult, which is still only a 4-turn cooldown, so it was good both ways, but I kind of like having the debuff removal on this skill in particular, because this can stay around a lot longer than a one use every 4-turn ult. So you're able to remove a lot more debuffs, which is super nice, especially in the Queen of Tides dungeon, being able to remove the stun and the different things she does. I really like having the debuff removal on the A2 rather than on the ult. I think it works very well, and it does a decent amount of heal, so this is a really nice skill. I like the way this one works a lot. Alright, so now to his ult. Heals all team members based on the amount of this character's max HP and applies heal over time to the target for 3 turns. And as you can see in here, leveling it increases healing by a lot, reduces the cooldown by a lot, more healing, more cooldown, more healing. And I did finally max out all of his abilities recently. I waited a little too long on doing that, but I finally got those all done, and it's been really nice. Alright, so we'll start looking over his stats here. So I have 18,000 health, 2,000 defense, 134 speed, and then crit rate, crit damage don't matter that much. And I've only got 18.5 focus, which is actually one of the few little drawbacks I have right now, is not having enough focus. Most PvE content doesn't seem to require very much focus in order to land debuffs very often, so I don't think I need to increase this by much. I very rarely notice him failing to apply his attack down, but the attack down is very nice, so I would definitely be trying to get a little more focus than this, as I myself am going to. And then I do have quite a bit of resistance sitting at 46.5%, and this is your chance to resist debuffs placed on him. So yeah, as you can see, there's not a lot of craziness here, not a lot of fancy anything going on. He just has a ton of health and a decent amount of defense, and he's very tanky. And then we'll go over here into the gear, and as you can see, I don't actually have incredibly maxed gear on him. Now, I will say I do have some decent rolls, such as these boots having double roll on defense percentage as a 6-star, more health, more focus, some little bit of flat defense, good health rolls here with a ×2 of them for 14% chance, a little bit of a weaker piece of gear, but still good rolls on the health percentage. Not as much going on here, but we do have a double roll on the defense percentage on a 5-star, which is pretty solid, along with some extra resistance. So as you can see here, not a great ring, flat defense, but I did get 2 rolls into defense percentage and a roll into health percentage, so it still has some decent stats. I think I'd eventually be looking for a health percentage ring with similar secondary stats instead of that, but it's worked out, as you can see. And then we've got a big percentage defense ring, along with a little attack and crit, which is kind of pointless, but it also had the health percentage, which this is really what I was looking for. My secondary stats didn't quite work out how I was hoping, but overall it's not a bad amulet, and that worked out pretty good. From what you can see here, I still have some upgrading to do, and a few pieces to be swapping out. But he has pretty solid stats in health and defense, especially compared to what level my gear is. So I'm actually really pleased with the scaling he's got in the health. He's very tanky. I very rarely have him die. He's usually the last man standing in almost any content, and that's only with plus 12 gear and only 1 at 15. So he's very tanky, and he's pretty easy to build. The one other stat thing I want to mention is I don't really run him with very much speed. As you can see, I've naturally got a little bit here just from some of the gear pieces and the secondary stats. I don't like him to be very fast, and the main reason for this is he is a main healer in my Armored Incursion. So he's really good in all of them, but specifically in the red Armored Incursion. And the reason he's really good there, and the reason I don't run him with very much speed, is the red Armored Incursion, if I remember correctly, deals reflecting damage to all of your team members. So your guys take their turn, they hit the boss, they take damage for it, which gets stronger and stronger throughout the fight. So during that fight, your damage dealers end up taking a lot of damage simply for attacking the boss. And so what happens, like let's say Blackhorn is the fastest member on my team. The rotation would go, he heals everybody at the beginning of the round. My damage dealers all attack the boss. They all take damage according to what stage we're at in the fight, which can add up to be quite a bit. And then the boss attacks. So his heals basically did nothing. If you have him go last, but right before the armored incursion, your team will deal their damage, hurt themselves by attacking him, and then Blackhorn can heal them out of all that damage they just took and hopefully above it, and that sets you up to be less likely to get one-shotted or just, completely wiped by the armored incursion. So I have tried it with a little more speed, having some speed boots on him and going first and then going last, and I just personally have had better luck with him going last in my team. For other content it might be a little different, but in general I've had the best luck with him going last in my rotation. Plus, if you don't have the heals up because of cooldowns, you can always land that decrease attack on a target or a boss right before their turn, and that's always nice too. So that's the reason I don't run him with a lot of speed. I just don't think it's very necessary on him. So let's come back in here. So obviously I've got most of his glyphs done. The only ones I've avoided are speed, tiny bit of resistance. I'm not too worried about it because, as I said, I don't really care about getting a lot of speed on him. And then an attack and resistance. Obviously I'm not very worried about attack, so I've been focusing these glyph scrolls on other characters. We'll eventually finish these out when I'm just farming, but I don't really need those two particular stats, so I'm not in a hurry to do these. I do have his abilities maxed, which is very nice. So now that we've kind of gone over the stats and how I have him built, let me go show you where I like to use him. So he can be useful in a lot of places in the game, so we'll kind of go from left to right here. So in Arena, on the attacking end, I don't find him very useful. I tend to run with a very AoE and speed damage team, so I can clear a lot of Arena runs quickly. But on the defensive side, as you can see, I'm just falling ranks right now to take advantage of easy wins. But if you're setting up a strong defensive team that you want to survive with in order to keep a rank, say you've made it up to the platinum tier, diamond tier, let's just say you're climbing the ranks and you really don't want to fall through, you can make a really tanky team with Blackhorn, especially because he's super solid, he heals himself. He's got the cleanse, he's got the big heal based on his max HP. He's just incredibly tanky. So combined with others like Brand and some of the other dwarfs, you can make an incredibly tanky team that is an absolute nightmare to try and beat. And let me tell you, running into a lot of teams like that in the higher tiers of Arena, it is unpleasant, and it will definitely help keep your rank where you want it. So that is the first place he could be really useful. Now we'll move into the dungeons. So there is different ways you can handle the dungeons. I don't really need him anymore because I do enough damage, but when you're first trying to clear all of the No Man's Land dungeons, he can be really helpful simply to try and not let your team die. Pretty straightforward, but he is really useful here. As I said, I don't really need him much anymore, just because I do have enough damage and enough raw stats from gear to get through these pretty easily. But if you're still struggling, he can help you a lot here just clearing content. An Arcane Dominator, the gear dungeons. So he can be really useful and really important in some of these. So Roaring Tulpa is going to be, I believe, his weakest one, having the negative affinity, but he is tanky enough and can be tanky enough that if you simply just need heals and you don't have anyone else to do it, you can bring him in here to help you. He will get focused, he will take more damage, so it's definitely not optimal, but you could if you need the heals. Ash Magisteria, he'd be better. He'd do his full damage, he wouldn't take as much damage being a blue character, so he would have the affinity strength against Ash Magisteria. So he could help you a lot here if you're struggling with heals and not being able to get through this one. The other nice thing he can do is the bomb that Ash Magisteria places. He can cleanse with that little totem on his too, so that can also be a really nice thing to have. I do currently run him in my Ash Magisteria team, so he can be really nice there. Queen of Tides, he's actually very important here. So as you can see on my own, I've made it, and I can farm stage 11. I haven't quite moved into 12 yet, sadly, but I do have access to it. But he is a main part of my team. He's the most important healer. He's supplemented by a level 50 Rodira healer as well, but he is the main one. The cleanse, taking off the stun that usually wants to go on my damage dealer Savannah. Clearing that is amazing. The big heals are amazing. Attack down on the boss is incredible. He's just really good here, guys. I've seen a lot of the main comps for beating Queen of Tides 12, I want to say, do often include him because he's a very good healer, and the cleanse is super helpful here, so I think he's really important for this dungeon, and he is super nice to have there. And then I haven't focused as much on these last two, as you can see, because I don't particularly have as much interest in these gear sets as the previous ones, But he's also good here, affinity neutral, because they're the light and dark. Same thing, he does the cleanse, he does all the heals. He's very simple, but he does really good work, and he's super helpful. And then Void Tower. He's actually helped me a lot here, simply because once I started getting to some of the stages where I can't just blast everything in one go and move on to the next wave, he did give me the heals in order to progress through and clear it. So he's helped me clear all of the first normal stages, and I made it up a little bit in the hard one, and he was really important here, because I definitely needed the heals in this one, because it gets a lot more challenging. But he's also really good there. The bounty hunts, he can be pretty nice here. Obviously, some of the affinity strengths and weaknesses matter more, so like this particular stage here, he would be good for, seeing that Hazel is a red character. But there's others where he wouldn't be as useful, such as Ricard on this last one, because these bosses have some insanely boosted stats, and they can do a lot of damage. So he can be useful here, but you do have to pick and choose which colors you're fighting with him here. And then in adventure mode, I find him useful for clearing difficult campaign stages. So if you're finding ones that you're having a hard time clearing with just raw damage, and you can't just AoE burst every single wave, much like some of the previous areas of the game, he can just give you the heals, let you reset, try again, and beat everything. So he's super nice here as well. Overall, he's just a super strong character, and if you guys pull him, hopefully you're building into him, because he's a really good support, and I think he can do a lot of good for your account. And then we did go over it pretty well, but I'll say it just once again. He's also very good in the Armored Incursion. I would use him both in the blue and, primarily for me, the red Armored Incursion. Green he's a little weaker against, so if he's all you've got, you might use him early, but eventually you're going to want to move away from using him on the green one, just because weak affinity, and the extra hit the Armored Incursion usually gets if you're the weak affinity. So, other than in the stage there, he's really good just about anywhere. So hopefully you're getting him, hopefully you're building him. So that pretty much wraps it up for my quick guide, guys. Thanks for watching. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you like this kind of format where we just kind of go through and talk about everything with it instead of spending your time watching a ton of runs, let me know. If you'd prefer to see all the runs done, also let me know. I'm more than happy to do it either way, as I said. But let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.